Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is Book Chat. I'm going to review another debut book. It is The Smell of Other People's Houses by Vanasse. So this is a historical set in Alaska in, I believe, the 1970s and 80s, and it was unexpectedly emotional and poignant for me. I loved a lot of things about it, even though it took me a while to get into it. It is told in multiple points of view and sometimes in multiple parts of Alaska. I can't objectively rate this book because to me it's so tied up in the idea. So I might have mentioned this on my channel or not. I went to Alaska in March to visit some family, specifically to attend a funeral. And while I was there, I realized in talking to these family members, they have this whole other life apart from me that I'd never really considered or thought of before. And reading this book was like imagining kind of their life in Alaska. A lot of them, went to Alaska during the kind of times that were covered in this book. My mother actually lived in Alaska before I was born, before she met my father. And so reading this book just made me feel very connected to people, even if I were to give it to them, they might say that it wasn't like their experiences at all. I felt like it was a little slow at first, but 100% worth reading, and especially if you have any interest in kind of Alaska, and not just kind of the Alaska of cable reality television, but what it's like to live there. And this book is not in large part set in very rural Alaska. Half of it's set in Fairbanks, and a tiny bit of it occurs kind of on the water in kind of on a fishing boat in Alaska, but like those kind of experiences are really reminded me of stories that I've heard from my relatives, so I really liked that. It also is really interesting in how it kind of explores, to some extent, kind of different kinds of parents and different kinds of parent-like situations and different kind of classes. And I don't know how to explain, but there's multiple different characters and they all feel actually very fleshed out when you get down to it. I don't really know how to describe this book. I'm doing a terrible review and I deeply apologize, but I want it to be on your radar. It's called The Smell of Other People's Houses, and just that concept, like one of the characters talks about the way different people's houses smell and what it tells her about them and what assumptions she makes based on the smell of their houses. And it made me think of how when you are going around and visiting people, like their houses do smell different, and how I remember I had a friend and they once commented on the smell of my childhood home, and my mother was horrified because she thought that it was like a mark against us, but they actually said how much they liked it because it smelled like lived in and loved. And of course I couldn't smell my own house because you get used to the smell of your own house. That idea, and it's just the perfect title for this book, and I really enjoyed it, and I definitely think you should pick it up if you like kind of those more quiet YA books, but that are still pack a pretty good punch. And it's a cultural exploration of a place that I feel like many of us don't have experience with. And I would love to hear if anyone who is actually Alaskan has read it. I really am glad that I picked up this book for the debut author challenge, and I'm really glad to have read it. So that is The Smell of Other People's Houses by Vanasse, and I would definitely recommend it. Bye!